Welcome to Wrestling Inc. after AEW Full Gear 2021. I am Alfred Konuwa, joined by my esteemed panel as always. He's the founder of Wrestling Inc. Saturday Night Raj Giri. What's going on, man?
What's going on, guys? How are you doing?
Good. And of course, great to be rejoined by this guy. He is the weight loss king himself. He's got a great t-shirt that I hope he gets to show all of us. He is the one and only Chuck Carroll. What's going on, Chuck? Redeeming these nuts. Look at him go.
You're damn right I am. I had to rep Eddie Kingston tonight. I had to rep my guy tonight. Fantastic. Good to see you.
And a lot of others.
So yeah, man, I'm glad to be here. I mean, you're steering the ship, Alfred, but I will say right off of the top, man, this pay-per-view exceeded my expectations. I'm high on what I just watched for the last 4 hours.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, before we really get into step by step, of course, we're going to, talk a little bit about the ratings a little bit. But before we do anything, I want to get your guys' overall thoughts on the pay-per-view. Chuck, you seem to really enjoy it. Raj, what did you think about AEW Full Gear as a whole?
I thought it was excellent. I thought almost every match was either good to great. I thought the Inner Circle match, I thought it kind of sucked, honestly. But outside of that, I thought everything else on the show was good to great. The main event was awesome. Ending was great. I thought it was a fantastic show.
Yeah, I did enjoy it. I will say I kind of grade these shows on a curve based on just how spectacular AEW pay-per-views tend to be. And on that spectrum of spectacular pay-per-views, I will say this show is maybe on the lower end of that in terms of it not being this just, instantly classic, filled with great matches I'll remember for years and whatnot. But I would not say it was a bad pay-per-view or a disappointing pay-per-view, but I do think that it had a lull for a little bit that I don't think they traditionally have. Although, again, this was a good offering for AEW, I would say.
Yeah, so as a lot of people know, and as a lot of people know, we did our first ever watch-along during tonight's pay-per-view. I was on the whole time, pretty much. There were a couple spots where I dropped off.
No, you weren't, dude. You went and you got dinner. You went and you walked a dog.
I watched a couple episodes of Squid Game.
I know, man.
But, but the point being is I had the volume really low because of that. So I don't know much about how the crowd reactions were, so I'm going to lean on you guys for that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Before we get into the pay-per-view itself, let's talk real quick. Of course, the fast national numbers, those overnights came in today.
Real quick before...
Sure.
Just Christian James Calderon already with the super chat. Thank you, Christian. Saying, what a pay-per-view. 9.9 out of 10.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. Wow.
Christian, are you grading on a curve? I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know if I'd give it a 9.9. I mean, I'd give it like a solid 8, 8.5, 9.
Yeah, I'm seeing some 8s in the chats. I would go 7.5 to 8 is what I would give this pay-per-view. Very enjoyable show.
But you know what?
8.
Christian is the kind of guy that I want to hang out with because Christian is an optimist, which means he always sees the sunny side of life. So, yeah, thank you, man. Good super chat, Christian.
Have you ever had a 10 out of 10 pay-per-view?
For AEW?
Yes, but not for pro wrestling.
Any pro wrestling.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just talking adult films. No. No, man. There's always something that could be better. There's always a little bit something that could be better. Yeah.
I would say, for me as a kid, WrestleMania 3, just because the way that show built, there was a lot of stuff on that show that was not the greatest, but the storyline and everything that got us there, I thought that was as close to a 10 out of 10 as I could get back then.
I would say in the neighborhood would be Money in the Bank 2011 because it's always remembered for that iconic match between CM Punk and John Cena. But that whole pay-per-view was excellent. I mean, they had that match between Randy Orton and Christian, which was a great match. The finish was kind of a wonky finish where it was basically Randy Orton kicking Christian in the junk, but the fans went crazy for it, and it really was a good moment. And there were a lot of really cool shows, 2 excellent Money in the Bank matches for that show. I thought from top to bottom that was really good. And then SummerSlam 2002 was another really just iconic pay-per-view for me.
WrestleMania 17, that was pretty much top to bottom. Great.
Absolutely.
Halloween Havoc, 93. I mean, just so good.
93. That wasn't the spin the wheel to make the deal with.
Dude, I don't know, man. I'm just throwing it out there, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, no, the Jake Roberts match was not great.
So, yeah, some good pay-per-views there. And, hopefully we'll see in the Pantheon on long-term how Full Gear 2021 stacks up. Of course, we had a major title change and whatnot. But before we get into Full Gear 2021, we're going to talk a little bit about the Fast Nationals, WWE versus AEW, those overnight ratings. And it looks like AEW Rampage garnered 480,000 viewers in the overnight viewership. It's 232,000 in the 18 to 49, down about 13% from what last week's overnight number was. While SmackDown did just under 2 million at 1.99 million with 655,000 in the overnight 18 to 49. So I will say with AEW Rampage, that is a pretty scary low number. And they're just based on what the numbers have been when they come in final, it looks like it'll come in just above what the worst viewership of all time for Rampage was, which is about 502,000. So I think when their numbers are made final, it'll do slightly above that, but not a good number for AEW Rampage. And honestly, I'm not surprised because this was a show that I feel like prioritized promoting the pay-per-view. It was a random show in terms of what they had compared to what they were going to go into with the pay-per-view. Not a lot of star power in the ring. I think they were saving a lot of their guys for these matches they were going to be having, but really nothing in terms of must-watch television on this AEW Rampage show, Chuck.
How indicative do you think that low number is going to be in terms of a buy rate for tonight's pay-per-view? I always look at that as a big-time indicator as far as interest, and if you're drawing close to a record low the night before your pay-per-view, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm a little bit nervous. I haven't seen any of those numbers come out as far as who bought the pay-per-view early yet, so we don't really know, but I know that during the watch-along, somebody was mentioning that they think that this was going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 150, maybe 175. I think that that's awfully optimistic. I'm looking at maybe 105, 110 for this at the best. So
really,
yeah, man, I'm not very bullish on this at all, man. I'm going the bear route for this one.
It didn't. I definitely think it's down from the last pay per view, and I think it's going to be down from the explosion, the exploding barbed wire match. It might beat not All Out, Double or Nothing in May. So I think it's going to be between that and this for the lowest pay-per-view number of the year. But I think it's going to do well just because you still have the big star power with CM Punk wrestling and Bryan Danielson, and then Omega and Page. I'm going to go 125 to 150. To your point about the Rampage ratings, the final rating, the viewership usually goes up anywhere between 3 to 10%. Yeah. Should be like in the 520,000 range. Again, one of the lowest they've ever done. But at the same time, it was weird when they announced the matches on Wednesday. It's like they didn't give people any reason to watch this show. I mean, Bobby Fish and Jungle Boy, who's going to win that. And Matt Hardy and Orange Cassidy. So it was odd. I thought they'd do at least like a face-off between Bryan Danielson and Miro, some sort of segment.
Contract signing.
Something. Well, they did do a contract signing on Dynamite, but I don't know. Same as Dynamite. Dynamite did a low number.
Yeah, and that's, I would say, Dynamite is definitely more of an indication of how this show might do. And it's been low. It hasn't done over 1 million since October 6th. And this past week, they did 912,000. People still seem to be kind of coming back from that 2 weeks of Saturday night preemptions. So I think that would be kind of a scary sign. So I expect them to do on the 100,000 range.
Yeah, man. I think they hit their crescendo with the last pay-per-view. You're coming off of that big stadium show in New York, then you got the pay-per-view. It's like you just had your debuts for Danielson and Punk, and it's like, where do you go from there, right? For me, the way that I see it is there's nowhere to go but down, and these numbers have, I'm not going to say fallen off of a cliff, but they've certainly gone down substantially than where they were just 3 months ago. So again, man, I'm definitely taking the bear route with this. Alfred, you're saying 100,000. I think maybe slightly higher, but Raj, man, I want a little bit about what it is you're sipping, because boy, yeah.
Well, they're doing better numbers now than they were doing before Double or Nothing, and Double or Nothing did in that 120 something range. So I think this will beat that. Again, they are airing live on the West Coast now, which impacts numbers a little bit, but at the same time, 2 weeks ago they were way higher than they did a 0.44 2 weeks ago, and that show aired live on the West Coast. This week they did a 0.35. Last week it was a 0.33. So I don't know if it's the numbers are falling off a cliff as opposed to they just had a super hot September, right? And that September you couldn't expect it to sustain, and I think a lot of media outlets picked up on AEW successes in September and were acting like that's the new norm, as opposed to this is a spike. Hopefully, when they settle in, they're higher than where they were before, but that the September numbers weren't going to sustain. So I think what we're seeing now is kind of where they're going to be, in that 900 to a million range for total viewers, and the mid 0.3s to 0.35 to 0.4 for 18 to 49.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Somebody in the chat was wondering, like, if we're anti AEW. No, 1,000% not.
We hate AEW.
Have you listened to my Raw reviews?
Wait till we get to the end of this review. We'll show you. We're going to bury this whole show, you guys. Are you guys ready to bury the show or what?
Yeah. Grant Yenny saying, good show, but definitely a lower tier AEW pay-per-view. Started off hot, long lull in the middle, and then an incredible finish. 6.5 out of 10, but 11 out of 10 main event.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment in terms of it started very, very hot, And again, I'm going into this knowing that I'm going to get a high-quality AEW show based on what they do with their pay-per-views. The first two show matches made me even higher on the potential of this show. And I think from there, it took a while for them to get back on track. I think that's what the bane of this show's existence.
Jim Bibiano saying, is it me or could AEW work on being a bit more snug? As Raj knows, no easy way out. Speaking of which, the new Rocky IV recut is out, and I gotta find time to watch that.
Rocky IV.
Stallone recut Rocky IV and added all this new footage, changed stuff around.
Was that the one with Tommy Gunn?
Nah, that's Drago.
Oh,
crazy!
All right, because I was like, you can retouch the one with Tommy Gunn all you want, and that's still going to be the drizzling shits.
I still liked it. It wasn't my favorite Rocky. It was on the bottom, but I still liked it.
I'm a big fan of the Rocky franchise. I don't think any of those movies were particularly bad, but yeah, maybe Rocky with Tommy Gunn was on the bottom of that.
Right.
But I'm very biased toward Rocky.
Yeah, same. And Creed 2, anytime they're on, I'm watching. Yeah. I'm sucked in.
Absolutely.
But yeah, AEW work on being a bit more snug.
I wouldn't say as a promotion. I wouldn't say yes to that. I would say the opposite. I think sometimes there's, they get a little stiff in terms of the things they do, especially some of these high spots that they try.
Yeah, I think so. The high spots is different. I think he means like the way they lay in the punches and things like that. And,
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I could see that. AEW is more built on the high flying high spots, but yeah, I feel like it's much safer to be more snug on your punches and things like that than dropping someone on their head off the top rope.
Boy, saw a lot of that tonight, didn't we? I mean, there was a lot of close calls. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, Marcus has Aaron saying Rampage needs to move nights. We were talking about this on the watch along. There's just no nights really, because if Rampage is on TNT, Tuesdays and Thursdays are kind of gone because of the NBA. So, and then Mondays you don't want to do with Raw. Fridays is where they're at. Wednesdays you got Dynamite, so it's either Fridays or Saturdays.
Well, neither night is going to be particularly good for drawing in viewership at all, So, I mean, they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. And even though the numbers are going down, and even though you who say that we are anti-AEW, you're way off base, because I will say that the numbers that they're drawing are still far superior to the majority of shows that are on cable. And they're holding their own. You got to remember that there are college football games now on routinely on Friday nights. So they're always competing there. And they're holding their own. So even though the viewership is slipping, I'm not mad with the numbers. If I'm TNT, I'm still not mad at the numbers.
It's really going to depend on what the reruns were doing in that spot before they added Rampage, and if it's worth the cost and whatnot.
Mojo 2 Go Bolinsky saying snug like Matt Hardy's elbow drop on Rampage. Matt Hardy tried to defend it by retweeting a fan who said Hardy was simply trying to make noise to make it sound like he hit a move. It's like, why would you drop an elbow on empty space as opposed to Orange Cassidy anyway? Like that
take the L, Matt. Like, we all love you. We know you're a legend.
Yeah, we all miss.
We all make mistakes, man. Just take the L.
Yeah.
Damn, that was a good super chat right there. I appreciate that.
Mark is saying move earlier. Then I think Saturdays earlier would be better. I think the reason they don't want to move earlier on a Friday is because you don't want to go against SmackDown, because then the narrative every week is how badly SmackDown beat Rampage.
Right. But then on Saturdays, if you do that routinely, you know, Tony Khan does not want to go up against the NFL. You've got the late season Saturday games plus the playoffs.
College football is
Saturday.
going to massacre. I mean, Tony Khan has reservations about doing pay-per-views on Saturday, even though we did see one tonight because of college football. And so they really want to be wary about college football, especially with the AEW.
Yeah, I think he means more regular season because I think the first AEW 1 hour special, Battle of the Belts, is going to be against the NFL. It's the postseason stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
The playoffs.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's going to be tough, man.
And last one, and then let's get into the show.
Sure.
Jay Flame saying, Punk and Eddie felt real, and to me was the match of the night. And that was actually the shortest match on the show, right?
Yeah, it was. And that doesn't surprise me, but I mean, I love what they're doing with Eddie Kingston and CM Punk, and we'll get into more of that in terms of how we felt about that particular match. But before that, let's kick off this pay-per-view. Talk about the first match, Full Gear 2021. We opened with MJF versus Darby Allen. Hell of an opening match. We get a lot of crazy stuff right out top. I love the fact that MJF did a headlock takeover, because he did comment that he was going to beat Darby with a headlock takeover, which caused Darby to get angry during a promo. But then we saw coffin drop on the apron, powerbomb spine busters, tombstone on the apron by MJF to Darby Allen. We had an Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko type exchange, which was a theme throughout the night, as we are tonight, the anniversary of Eddie Guerrero's death.
Which was he died in Minneapolis.
Yeah, he did in 2005, 16 years ago. So we got a lot of Eddie tributes throughout this show, which I thought was really cool. And the finish came when MJF tried to get Darby Allen to use a skateboard, because, again, the story of this match is, can Darby Allen beat MJF in a straight-up wrestling match? Darby decided not to, like a true babyface, but then like a true heel, MJF used the diamond ring to knock him out while the ref was distracted. MJF picks up the dirty win. And guys, I don't know about you. I know that this was very kind of predictable that Hangman Adam Page was winning tonight, but just seeing MJF win a match of this caliber told me Hangman Adam Page is definitely winning, and they're getting the heels ready for him. What did you guys think about this match and MJF winning, Chuck?
Yeah, I like this match, and I was actually really impressed with what MJF was able to do in the ring. We've always known that he's a better talker than he is a wrestler, and I think that we might have seen, him wrestle one of the best matches we've ever seen him do. Like the chain wrestling that he did was phenomenal, and I was shocked when I saw him do a bridge and the bridge on his toes. Man, I was like, damn. MJF was able to do that? Like, I was like, okay, sir, I see you. Good luck topping this in the future, man. But I was really proud to see that progression. And Darby, he's going to remain strong, even in the L here. So big fan of this opener, man. I mean, it just blew me away. The whole pay-per-view exceeded my expectations. This match, perhaps more so than any other, did the exact same.
Yeah, I thought this was awesome. I love Darby's entrance to begin with. Like, it just made it feel special. It, I miss, like, WWE back in the day. They do those special entrances, and I loved it. And then they stopped doing it, but they do it at takeovers, which really made the matches feel that much more important. And then they eventually stopped those. But I like when they do stuff like that, because it makes the talent stand out, and it just gives it an extra big feel. I thought both guys were excellent in this match. One of the big criticisms I have with AEW is they kick out of too much stuff. Like last week, Pac hit, who was it? He hit with a brain buster off the top rope, and the guy kicked out.
Dax Harwood, that was scary.
Dax Harwood. That's a move that should paralyze you.
Yes.
And when you're kicking out at 2, all it does is tell everyone, yeah, you got the whole crowd being like, 1, 2, oh! Yeah, you got that. But also you're telling everyone you did the move in such a way that it didn't hurt the other guy that much. For how devastating it should be, it didn't really hurt the guy. And they did a similar spot in this match when MJF did the tombstone on the ring apron. But instead of doing the 1-2 shock face, they went, MJF sold his knee, like he hurt his knee, and they went outside the ring, which I really dug that. So you hit a move that looks like it should be devastating, and you don't just do a 1-2 kick out. And there were just little things like that in this match that I really liked. And I thought this was my second favorite match of the show. It's my favorite match until the main event. The only thing I didn't like was when they were doing the rolling around the ring. It looked a little too silly for me.
Oh, yeah?
But outside of that, I got to nitpick something. But outside of that, I thought this match was fantastic.
Yeah, this set the bar for throughout the night as terms of like what the best match is going to be. I think they set a really high bar early on, and this was just a really, really good match to start the show.
MJF is awesome.
Yeah, good. So it looks like he might be in contention because, I mean, he just keeps winning. Very rarely do they beat him, and now we have a babyface champion for the first time in about a year, and, I think MJF might be one of the first people to get that shot.
Yeah.
So we go into FTR versus the Lucha Brothers. The Lucha Brothers are starting to corner the market on superstar entrances. They had another one here in Full Gear that I thought was really cool. FTR, of course, your AAA Tag Team Champions challenging for the AEW Tag Team Championships. We get another Eddie tribute at one point. Ray Phoenix is just going wild. He has 3 amigos and a frog splash. I thought he was so good. The finish was kind of confusing. It came when Wheeler tried to use his green mask. The ref noticed it, put an end to it, and then Penta and Phoenix spiked Wheeler to the mat and won, but Wheeler was not the legal man. So it looks like they're going to maybe continue this feud because they illegally won this match, but there was a lot going on with this. I thought everybody shined in terms of double team maneuvers, but once again, I mean, maybe I'm biased because he's like my favorite in AEW, but Ray Phoenix I thought was incredible in this match when he was working with the ropes and doing his thing. What did you guys think about this match as a follow-up to the hot opener, starting with you, Raj?
I thought this match was awesome too. I thought it was really good. My nitpick, Eddie passed away 16 years ago today. Don't kick out of the frog splash.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Miss it. Whatever. Don't kick. And Jericho did win with the frog splash later, but
that's part of the problem is that he won with the frog splash and they kind of undermined it with this one.
Right. Yeah. Just have him miss it or something, or he gets pulled out of the ring. He won 2, pulled out of the ring. But I thought the action was great. I love the entrance again. I'm big on stuff like that. I'm big on stuff that makes the show feel bigger and the talent feel bigger. I thought it was great. Again, this show started off on such a bang between this and the MJF match. I thought it was awesome. Yeah. And Ray Phoenix, at some point, this guy has got to go on a singles tear. And, Pentagon's awesome too, but Ray Phoenix he's our generation's Mysterio.
That's a bold statement, but you know what? I think that you could be spot on here. Really liked everything about this match, Raj. I'm just going to double down on what it was you said. Up until the finish. The finish I thought was kind of lame, but the positive side to that is clearly you have the announcers mentioning that he wasn't the right guy. So you know that this feud isn't over yet. You know that they still have more to go. And after what we saw tonight, I mean, I'm all for another match. I mean, bring it on. Give it to me on Wednesday. Like, I want more, right? I was a big fan of this match. So you look at the opener, you look at this match. So far, AEW was 2 for 2 on the night, man. I was very pleased with this one.
Yeah, all the tributes to Eddie, and no one did the untied boot, which I was disappointed
or
in.
One of those spots where he's doing the cheating to win, which is
right. Yeah, like throwing the chair at the other guy.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about Vicky in the buy-in. I mean, how do you think she was feeling tonight? All of these tributes and people chanting Eddie while she was out there by the ring. I mean, this had to have been a really emotional night for her.
Yeah, it's a good
point. I'm sure. Oh yeah, we didn't mention the buy-in. So the buy-in saw Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida beat Nyla Rose and Jamie Hayter.
Yes. Okay. Any thoughts about this match in particular? I thought it was fine.
Yeah, it was good. I thought it was good.
It was okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, we talked about it being 2 for 2. Now we get into Bryan Danielson versus Miro, and I like that you said that it was 2 for 2. That's exactly how I kind of saw this, because I felt like they went to such a high pace that now the fans are coming down just a little bit, and it maybe took a little longer to get them into this match. But as a match, I absolutely love this because they're very technical, brawling. Miro's getting stronger as the match goes on. At one point, he starts just not only no-selling Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson's offense, but asking for more of it. And they continue to play on Miro's neck, which is his vulnerable spot. So Bryan Danielson went from a top rope, looks like tornado DDT. But they did kind of seem to botch this a little bit because they went straight into the guillotine submission, and I felt like the crowd was confused. So as good as I thought this match was, I feel like it might have been sullied a little bit by the ending. But again, you get another match with Bryan Danielson where he wins with a different submission. They played into Miro's neck. Miro's looking up at God throughout the match. The longer he wasn't able to win it, so they're doing that. But Bryan Danielson beating what I thought was a piping hot Miro, and setting up to be the first challenger, it looks like, for Hangman Adam Page. Do you agree with this, Chuck Carroll? What did you think about the match?
I do. And a lot of people are kind of surprised that Bryan Danielson went over here. They were thinking, well, it's got to be Miro. Miro is a heel. You're going to need that for a babyface or for if Hangman Page is going to go over, right? And sure enough, Hangman Page did. Here's the thing, though, right? You saw that. I mean, I'm hesitant to even bring this up now, but I will tease by saying I'm not altogether convinced that we still won't have a heel versus babyface for the championship. And all I'm going to say is Bryan Danielson is going to remain the babyface, and we'll leave it right there. But the match itself was absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed it. You're right. There was that one confusing spot. So not going to give it 5 stars. I'll give it 4. But, Bryan Danielson, Miro, it's just not going to disappoint. And it didn't disappoint. So I like it. I like the finish. I like where this is headed. And I'm real interested to see how Bryan Danielson's push to the championship goes. But am I incorrect in assuming because you had a title change tonight, the odds of him actually taking the title, I don't know if it's going to be at the next pay-per-view, but it's got to be low, man. I'm not seeing this being a short-term run. So maybe you can call this one a little bit of an empty victory, but still a hell of a match.
Yeah, I thought the match was really good. This kind of tells you just the run that Bryan Danielson's been on, because it's probably not his best AEW match yet, probably his worst in a lot of ways, because they've all been great, and he's just been on such a spectacular run right now. I figured Danielson was going to win. He just came, he just debuted at the last pay-per-view. I think it's too soon to beat him. I had given my predictions at the beginning of our watch-along, and I'd gotten them all right tonight as far as the major matches go. Yeah. And so just tooting my own horn a little bit. So, whenever you guys want to give me some props, that's fine. But
congratulations, Rod. Sunday Night Raw, not missed, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not surprised by Bryan Danielson winning, but just selfishly, I was cheering for Miro to win, not only because he's been so good, but Chuck brings a good point. We will get into it later on in terms of how the main event went down and whether what's going to happen with Adam Page, but Adam Page now, assuming he's going to be a babyface champion, he needs heels. And this is a heel they were kind of gifted this opportunity with Miro being able, he's so hot, he's inserted into the tournament. And had he won, now you've got not only MJF, but Miro waiting in the wings for your babyface world champion.
Yeah, that was the only problem with doing Omega versus Page, is that with this storyline, Page had to win. It kind of buries him if he doesn't. But by doing that, you kind of lose Omega versus Punk, Omega versus Danielson, at least for now. Because they don't like doing the quick title change, quick world title changes in AEW. So, and you can still do them without the title, but it's not as big. Adding the title in the mix is much bigger. So it's the right move to have Page win, but at the same time, business-wise, it probably would have been better to have Omega win just because you have those 2 giant matches. And both of those are big pay-per-view matches. So, because, Page versus Danielson just doesn't have the right marquee value. It's still a big match, but it doesn't feel like a dream match by any means, like those other ones. So, you could go Hangman versus MJF too. Yeah, they just don't feel like big pay-per-view main events, if you know what I mean.
They don't, but remember, they've been doing big matches on TV, and I think that if you did the initial one on TV, you played that one right, then you can graduate that to a pay-per-view caliber main event. So we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. But Raj, that's a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we get into Jurassic Express and Christian versus the Super Click, which is the Young Bucks and Adam Cole. Young Bucks are doing their heel best in these outrageous bright purple outfits. Nick Jackson with his purple mustache. These guys are so good at being heels. Now we get Adam Cole getting bloodied. Concerto Tease from Jungle Boy doesn't want to do it. A lot of crazy spots. Christian dive from the balcony. We get that triple team camel clutch that the Super Click likes to do, but this time thumbtacks in Jungle Boy's mouth. I will say there was a lot going on, but I felt like the camera had a tough time keeping up. I felt like there were some miscues in terms of this, and you're talking about, how match after match with Bryan Danielson, we have a high standard, and this might have been his weakest match against Miro, despite being a fairly good match. I feel the same way about this with the Young Bucks. This, I think, was their worst pay-per-view match. I don't think there's any arguing that this was their worst pay-per-view match, but they've had so many classic matches. This just was not on that level, and I do think that people were expecting this type of knockdown, drag-out match to be something along those lines, but this really didn't deliver for me in terms of Jurassic Express and Christian versus Superclick, Chuck.
Is it just because, like you said, they've had so many good ones? It's so hard to live up to that.
Could be spoiled, but there were a couple miscues too. This match was not without its faults.
That's true. That's true. The creativity was there. I mean, the knee pads that had the tacks on it, that was pretty creative. The thumbtack.
But then they hit it on a guy who's wearing a mask.
Right.
So
I mean, you know,
the one person is not going to hurt at all.
Don't overthink certain things, Raj. It will only make your head hurt, my friend. But then the thumbtacks in the mouth, I thought that was just insane.
They did that before, right? With
I don't think they have.
They did the thumbtacks
in AEW.
Yeah, AEW did the thumbtacks, and maybe it wasn't the Young Bucks doing it. Someone in the chat reminded me where they did the thumbtacks in the mouth. It might have been. I don't think it was the Nick Gage match, but maybe Lance Archer.
It makes me nervous, though, man. I mean, if you swallow one of those things, you're in a bad way. But it goes to show like how far he's willing to go. I thought that the storytelling in this match was really good, right? So I really like the fact that Jungle Boy didn't want to do the concerto at first. He's conflicted, and then at the end, he just boom, just nails it. So I was like, all right, that's good storytelling. There's some emotion there. Kind of reminiscent of the old ECW arena with New Jack jumping off of the balcony. So we saw Christian have his fun going into the stands and jumping off the top like that. But, this match was what it was. Definitely not one of the best ones for the night, but the storytelling was there. So I'm not mad at it.
King Mike 307 with a good question. Why don't you just spit him out?
Again,
they were holding his face, right, when they put him in? Did they keep holding his face?
I don't think they did. No. Well, okay. Adam Cole did have a camel clutch, so theoretically you could argue that maybe he had his mouth cut, but his hands weren't around Jungle Boy's mouth to where he couldn't spit him out. So that is a good point by King Mike.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Britt versus Abaddon
That's
and
what it was. Okay.
Lucha versus the Bucks cage match. They did it.
Well, that's going to go wrong one of these days.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. Grant Yenny saying thumbtacks, knee pads on Luchasaurus looks like when people would chop Roman wearing the vest. That's true. That being said, I like the match. This was it was a little bit of a downer from the first few matches of the night. I think a lot of people, just the bar is so set with the Young Bucks. I do love that it's a street fight. So Christian Cage, he's like wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and the Young Bucks are wearing bright neon pink, which I think is awesome. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really enjoyable. It wasn't the best thing of the night by far. It was a little bit where, you were talking how there was a lull in the middle of the show, and I felt like this was kind of where it started. Because this match also didn't really have any stakes. It was just kind of there. It didn't matter who won. I just kind of thought Adam Cole is his first pay-per-view. I was kind of hoping to see him get the win, but it didn't really matter either way. But yeah, I thought it was good, but it was definitely where the lull kind of started for me for a little bit.
Yeah, and I will agree that the lull continued into this next match. We got Cody and Pac versus Andrade and Malachi. And, of course, with this, really not a lot of storyline development in terms of this particular tag team match. We have been telling stories with Andrade and Pac and with Cody and Malachi Black, but this was on short notice. Fans, now this is where I was in actually the watch along with you, Raj, so we weren't able to hear completely what was going on, but the chat was letting us know that fans were booing Cody. I thought this was a good tag team match. I actually did think that this was a good match, but the crowd had come down a little bit. We do get the can they coexist spot, the vaunted can they coexist, where Pac accidentally hits Cody with a suicide dive, but then Pac is able to pick up the win over Andrade with a black arrow. What did you guys think about this match, starting with you, Raj?
I feel like I've seen so many variations of this match over the past couple months that I feel like Cody beat Malachi Black too soon. I felt like that should have been the singles match on this pay-per-view as opposed to a tag match. Because there is such a thing as momentum when you first come in. I'm not saying Malachi should go undefeated for years and years. I'm just saying, when he's hot, don't beat him yet. And I don't think he should have been beaten yet. Like he seems like he's already cooled off a bit. And this match just felt there. Like Malachi didn't feel as hot as he did 2 months, even a month ago. Meh.
That's but like, who does feel as hot as they did a month ago? Like, that's that crescendo I was talking about earlier, right? It's so hard to carry that wave of momentum, like that significant momentum forward. I mean, it's just so hard. In the chat, let me know how would you rate this match out of 5? I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 here. I really enjoyed it, particularly the Andrade and Pac spots. I thought that was a lot of fun. Pac, though, man, I don't know if you were doing the watch along, so I don't know if you saw this one, but Pac took a really nasty DDT on the apron. Like, it looked to me like he really came down on his head. I was like, oh, that's gonna leave a mark. But he was able to continue on. But that was pretty wicked. FTR at the end. I get it. It was just a little bit confusing. I was like, what? Really? We just? So that's why I give it a 3 out of 5. And it looks like, that.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
Oh, some really
Some
2.5
loose scores.
3s and 4s, but 2s and 3s looks like the 2.5. Oh, it looks like 2.5.
Cleve
going. Oh, there's a couple good ones here.
I'm going
to.
Oh, hold on.
Garrus is trolling here.
All right. But seriously, though, like if you rated it 4 and you're serious about it, like what are you seeing that we're not here? I'm not seeing this as a 4-star caliber match.
We all like different things.
Yeah, I think booking this particular match, I think the fault is on AEW because these are all talented performers. We even have 2 storylines that have managed to get over with fans, but this tag team match, it felt like they were doing this just to get them on the card, and I don't think that's acceptable. I think they could have had a match for Cody, who's really rising as a hot character. Whether or not he's getting the reactions he wants to get, he's really rising as a very polarizing, very compelling character as to how these fans receive him, and they could have done something in a singles match with Cody, or not had this match altogether, honestly. But I don't think that they should have had this tag team match on the show.
Yeah, it was kind of weird that they did the third Malachi Cody match on, what was it, Rampage Dynamite? It was one of those that was on one of their least viewed episodes. So
Saturday.
I feel like that match deserves a pay-per-view. That would have felt way more important than a random tag match.
Yeah,
and that storyline got rushed. It went. We were talking about this earlier. Yeah. They were talking about Arn Anderson. It was kind of like Cody getting the eye of the tiger back, and then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks later, he beats Malachi. It's like he got it back in 2 weeks. He was, burning his tie in a fire, and then 2 weeks later, he beats Malachi. So it just felt rushed.
I 100% agree that it has been rushed. And maybe, again, I still think it would have been too soon to have Malachi Black suffer his first loss at Full Gear. But if the story is they're going to build to Full Gear with these extra weeks they had, maybe they could have done it to where this is a fitting time for Cody to win. But, I think this storyline might have peaked early is what happened. Yeah,
and then this match ended with Pac pinning Andrade. And I feel like we've seen them beating each other so much on Rampage over the last few weeks. Like, I give WWE crap for repeating matches. They've done Pac and Andrade quite a few times already.
Do you think by bringing in so many names, AEW kind of backs himself into a corner where you have these rehash angles and for whatever reason you fall into that WWE trap where you see the same crap week after week after week after week? Is this one of those instances here, do you think?
I think it's the opposite in terms of them falling into patterns where there's talented people who disappear from television for months on end, and they are not able to cycle them in the way that maybe somebody would figure they should be. You've got people like, whether it's Shida, whether it's even Cody. I know Cody has to take time off and he leaves and disappears, but Malachi Black is now in that kind of role where even though he had a match tonight, he kind of fell to the wayside after losing to Cody.
Yeah, you would think with them bringing in this many people, it allows them to mix up the matches that much more. Yeah. And they do a better job of that. Again, I don't want to turn this into a WWE AEW thing, but they don't repeat matches near as much as WWE. I mean, it's pretty rare.
Yeah, the dynamic.
This was the one that they've been repeating a lot.
Yes. This is something, and hopefully the fact that the babyface won so emphatically is a sign that they're done with this and they move their separate ways. But it's very similar to the dynamic between old WWF and NWA, where WWF, if they had a hot match, they would just drive it into the ground as soon as possible. NWA would save their hot matches for the year-long build-up to where us getting there again, and that seems to be the philosophy that.
What year WWF are you talking? Because WWF they did
70s,
like Hogan Savage, they did the year build.
Oh sure, yeah. In the 90s and the 80s, when I'm talking about old school territory NWA, the
gotcha.
Ric Flair era of NWA when they were going. Yeah. WWE is definitely capable of that. Rock Cena is another example.
Right.
So we have Britt Baker versus Ty Conti as your next match. This is the AEW Women's World Championship. And I will say that this, for me, is when the lull started to end, because I thought this was a really good match. I thought that they really overachieved based on where they were slotted, based on the fact that I think a lot of people, everybody thought that Britt Baker was going to win, but they had a very good competitive match. We saw Ty Conti kick out of 2 curb stomps. The finish was very interesting in that Britt Baker looks like she's going for a lockjaw, but it was very close, and she actually turned into a roll-up, almost got rolled up herself by Ty Conti, but was able to barely get the victory and squeak out a win over Ty Conti. So I don't know if there's going to be a rematch. I don't know if they're doing that to keep Ty Conti strong moving forward, but I thought this was a very good match, and Ty looked really good. Chuck.
Yeah, I hope that they do keep Ty kind of in that upper echelon of the women's division. My concern, though, and my perception of the women's division has been, if you're not champion and you're not a challenger for said championship, there's really not a whole heck of a lot of room for you. I mean, we saw the women on the buy-in, right? But how many people is that match really going to resonate with? So where does Ty go from here? Even though she looked fantastic, and she should stay strong even in defeat here coming off of this match. It was great. But where does she go from here, right? Like, how many big slots are there for the women right now? There aren't a whole heck of a lot, but I really do hope that they continue to groom her to be one of the bigger names in the women's division, because she clearly showed tonight that she can carry that torch. I was really, really pleased with this. This is a match, in my opinion, that also overachieved. So big fan of this match. The only note that I have here is that Ty took another awkward drop on the apron. I mean, did you see that? I believe she kind of landed on the corner of the apron. Okay. She's going to be sore as hell when she wakes up tomorrow. No doubt about that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Alfred. I thought the lull kind of was coming. It was coming back up with this match. I thought it was really good. I wonder if anyone in the chat was keeping count. I do like how AEW keeps time limits, but it felt like there were at least a couple matches that went over 20 minutes that they didn't do any kind of time limit warning or anything like that.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I'm a stickler for the rules, man.
Yeah, that's it. Look, AEW doesn't do, they're very lax with the rules and how the officiating is. That's one of my big criticisms.
That's one of my big criticisms too. Is if you're hitting someone with a jukebox in front of the referee, then what are we doing here? Like you just pull out a knife. I'm just saying. I mean, at some point you need some. Either don't do stuff that'll get you DQ'd to preserve the integrity of what you're doing, or use a DQ once in a while. I don't think you should do it like WWE where there's multiple ones on every show, but once every 5 months just to show that there are rules and you can get disqualified. I think they need to do that. But that being said, I thought this match was really, really good. I thought it was one of Britt Baker's best matches. Ty Conti has she's improved immeasurably over the last year. I think she just looks fantastic. So, yeah, I thought this was really good. Ty Conti, I could see her one day being champion. And I could also see her being a great heel, too, down the road.
Oh, yeah. I could see her bullying because she's a really, really phenomenal athlete and a black belt in judo. And that judo style, similar to how we saw Ronda Rousey, when you're a heel and you're just like this bully who's ragdolling somebody, that's something that I think Ty Conti could do really well as a heel.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Where does she go from here? I mean, somebody in the chat was just mentioning Ruby Soho. Where was Ruby Soho? The only time that we saw her tonight was, I believe, in a montage where she was breaking up some random skirmish backstage, right? And she was like the big thing, as recently as the Arthur Ashe Stadium show. So it's like they need to figure out some way to elevate some more women here, or at least keep them elevated. And Ty Conti is a perfect person to do that. So I really hope that they figure out a way to do it.
And they do have the TBS title coming, so hope.
Exactly.
There you go. There you go.
So that should open up.
One way that they're pretty much going to have to. And if they book it anywhere near the level of the TNT title, which is, been like a 1B to the AEW World Championship, then the women will definitely benefit from that.
I think this has been a problem with WWE and AEW, is that with the women's division, often they'll only book the title, whoever's champion, a program for that, and then not really much strong underneath. And it's like it has to be a title picture, or otherwise it doesn't get much attention. And I think both companies need to work on that. And when Ronda Rousey was in WWE, that it was a little different, and they were starting to move away from that, and now it's kind of getting back to it. But I think actually, you know what, WWE, they did start Doudrop and Bianca and some other underneath feuds, so we'll see how that goes. But I just think meaningful feuds that aren't title feuds in the women's division are needed.
Yeah, and one feud, and this is a conversation that came up during the watch along, is perhaps maybe in the future Anna Jay versus Ty Conti. I think they do a good job matching as an actual tag team. It is a little early for something like that, which is what we kind of concluded, but this is one of those underneath feuds that's based on a storyline that people can get in based on how much time they spent together.
Yeah.
So our next match on this thriving, let's get back. Okay, here we go. It is a CM Punk and Eddie Kingston. Some people, myself being one of them, this is a match I look forward to more than any. This is a very personal feud. We have CM Punk coming out in his Muay Thai trunks. So another iteration of CM Punk gear. Before we get into this match, where do you guys rank this gear compared to his tights, compared to his trunks? Where does the Muay Thai CM Punk gear rank for you, Chuck?
Above the longs, so I call these mid-card. Above the longs, this was mid-card ring attire.
It reminded me of like Apollo Creed, but with the Chicago instead of the U.S. flag. It was distracting to me. I don't know why it shouldn't be. It's like when Cody got his neck tattoo. I just could not stop paying attention to it for like weeks. It was just something's wrong with me. But the same thing in this match. Those shorts bothered me, but outside of that, I thought this was great. It wasn't overly long. Right. It was physical. It felt real. It felt like there was real tension there. Eddie is fantastic. I cannot believe that it's taken this long for him to be discovered, but at least it finally happened. And I thought it was great. I hope, and I liked that Eddie didn't shake CM Punk's hand after the match. Punk won. I think everyone saw that coming. But I like that Eddie didn't shake the hand, and hopefully they take this in other levels, and it doesn't end here.
Yeah, before we get to you, Chuck, just to run down some of the highlights of this match, I too thought it was really good. I like the fact that it was the shortest match on the card because it was going to be a fight, and they really did emphasize the fighting. They really tried to make Eddie Kingston the heel in this match. I know there's been some shades of gray. There's always going to be support for Eddie, but like right off the bat, before the bell rang, he hit a spitting back fist and did the heel shit-eating grin. But these fans,
why didn't he go for the pin? Did the bell not ring yet? Or?
Yeah, the bell had not rang yet, so they were. Okay. And, part of this story of this match of subtext is that Eddie Kingston is not interested in winning the match. He just wants to inflict pain on CM Punk. But I would say it was 60-40 in favor of Eddie in terms of the reaction. CM Punk bled early on. We got a 5-knuckle shuffle tease from CM Punk, who had seen his comeback. So kind of leaning into these heel reactions he got. There were parts of this match where Punk looked around at the fans like, you're booing me? And I will say, as much as I love this match, all the middle fingers, all them punching each other in the face literally at some point, Punk did win with the GTS. We did see an Eddie Guerrero tribute from CM Punk doing the Three Amigos, which did get booed. I think we're setting up for a double.
They got booed? Again, I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, they were. I guess the Eddie Kingston backers were the ones who were most vocal about it because there was definitely support for CM Punk in this match, but I would say it was skewed toward Eddie. And it just seems to me that they might be headed to possibly a double turn at some point. Who knows?
I hope so.
See them doing a rematch, and I just love the energy they've created around these two, Chuck.
Yeah, I really liked it, and I think that they did a really good job of building toward this match. There are so many elements of realism toward this, right down to Eddie Kingston's incredible article recently in the Players Tribune. And I don't know if you guys even saw it. The front row, there was a sign that said "Mental Health Partner," so you know that you're over when your out of the ring cause is making it into the arena. So very good job there. I'm wondering though, like, is it like you were just talking about this? Is this the beginning of heel Kingston? You know, like, is that where it goes, or is Punk going to become the heel here? Right. So because Kingston lost and Punk's just an a-hole in Kingston's eyes, he doesn't shake his hand. Does that necessarily mean that he's going to be the heel here, or is it like Punk's just the a-hole and Punk needs to be the heel here? I don't know. But what I do know is the same way that I was just advocating for Ty Conti, I'm going to advocate here for Eddie Kingston and hope that he doesn't get knocked down the card too. I really do hope that they carry forward all of this momentum here, because this is a guy, they have stumbled across him and he is a gem. Like, this is 20 years in the making. This guy is a gem. He's right for it. He's clearly over with the fans. You're going to be hard pressed to find many people in that locker room who are better on the microphone than Eddie Kingston. So, I mean, this guy is gold, and I really do hope that they continue to push him in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think I agree with some of the people in the chat. Punk needs to go heel ASAP, says Braylon Dulac. And I do what I want, says heel Punk is the best. I agree. I think Punk is just so much more interesting as a heel. But it did look like before Jon Moxley, and we wish him the best, obviously, but before he went to rehab, it did look like they were going Jon Moxley as a heel,
right,
and Eddie Kingston aligned with him. So you know, in turn, he would have been a heel as well. You know, obviously, Moxley needs to get his, you know, take as much time as he needs. And I don't know if they were wanting him to turn heel with Moxley or whatnot, but I still think they need to keep this going. I think I felt like the best stuff wasn't seen by their widest audiences. That Punk Kingston promo was fantastic, and it was on Rampage, which is seen by, like, you know, 3/4 of the audience of Dynamite. And
599,000 people to be exact for that episode.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you're doing the best stuff, not in front of your widest audiences. I think they got to keep this going, and you know what? I think both guys are so great here. I think Punk could kind of turn it on because he's kind of the heel in this situation.
Definitely.
He was kind of bullying Kingston, saying he wasn't in shape, stuff like that. And I think you could really, like you said, like a double turn, even though Eddie Kingston's not really the heel right now, but do it where Punk turns out to be the heel and fans really get behind Kingston. And maybe Kingston gives Punk his first loss.
I'm glad you brought up the in shape thing, because that's another hint to me that signaled to me that they might be headed to a double turn. The finish of this match told a great story where they were both fatigued, but Eddie Kingston was just too fatigued to really continue and really just kind of stumbled into a GTS, and they made it really clear that Eddie Kingston was not in the type of shape he should have been in order to win and finish this match. And I think this opens the door for CM Punk to start talking about, see, maybe if you were in better shape, maybe if you would have worked harder. And that's never a babyface stance to take, to kind of condescend to somebody about how they're not in shape. So I think whether they realize it or not, people are going to continue to side with Eddie Kingston in this feud, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, and just for all the right reasons. I mean, this is he's the underdog, right? I mean, everybody knows his story now. How can you not pull for this guy, regardless of storyline? How can you not pull for this guy? And if there is any question whatsoever about, is this feud going to continue, the lack of a handshake at the end of the match tells you everything that you need to know. Is these guys aren't done yet. So let's see what they have for us down the road.
So what was the crowd reaction at the beginning, would you say, and by the end? Like, did it shift at all, or was it pretty much the same?
I would say it went back and forth between Eddie Kingston and CM Punk, and I think as the match went on, it went pro Eddie. And I think that might have been by design, because I think CM Punk kind of looking around he wasn't doing it in a way where he was legitimately surprised. He was doing it in that pro wrestling way, like, you're gonna boo me, like trying to get him to boo more. So okay. I would definitely say that as it went on, Eddie Kingston got more cheers. Would you say that, Chuck?
Yeah, I'd say 60-40, maybe 65-35 even. But yeah, absolutely. Advantage Eddie here. And I think that they did a good job getting that across, storytelling in the ring. You're absolutely right. That was 100% by design.
So Nick, the press conference is going on right now, the AEW press conference, and Nick asked Jay Lethal if he'll be at Final Battle, and Jay Lethal confirmed he will not be. And he also only got the call to join AEW a few days ago, so it was a pretty last minute thing. And,
well, let's get into that.
to...
This came after the next match we'll talk about, but let's talk about it right now. Jay Lethal came in and was introduced as a member of the AEW roster. He said, "I'm all elite." We don't have like his contract details or whatnot yet. And immediately they set up a program with him. It looks like he's going to be taking on Sammy Guevara, the AEW TNT Championship. You guys excited for Jay Lethal in AEW, Raj?
I am. I'm a Jay Lethal fan. He was a part of All In. Super talented guy. Felt like he never quite got his due. He never quite got the... Every time it felt like he was getting hot in TNA, something would happen, whether management changed or whatnot. But it just seemed like he was starting to get some momentum and something would happen to kind of burn it out. And so with everything that happened with the ROH, it's good to see that, he's moving on. And yeah, I think he never got that chance on a real big stage, and he's finally getting that.
So he's not going to be working the pay-per-view. Didn't ROH just have a set of TV tapings last week? Was he at those, do you know? Or is he just done now?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know any ROH free agent is welcome to sign wherever they want.
Right.
Yeah.
So they could always edit him out of those tapings if he was there.
I don't think they would do that. I mean... What's the point?
I mean, no one's watching it right now anyway. As much as I hate to say it, ROH just feels like, it's like watching the final Nitro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I'm going to be at that pay-per-view in a couple of weeks. It'll be really weird to see what the vibe is in the building. I don't even think tickets are moving for that thing. So that tells you like how cold that product is right now, which is a shame. But I am very happy for Jay Lethal to be getting this break. I mean, this is easily the biggest promotion he's ever been in, even though he was with Impact when they were, substantially hotter than they are right now. I don't think maybe that New York show, he's ever been in front of a crowd this size. So I'm really happy for him to be seeing this so late in his career. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I don't think it could have taken this long in terms of, how he was embedded in All In show with the Elite. He was one of the prime characters. I believe they had the ROH championship match at All In, and he was one of the prime stars in terms of being with the Elite. And so it is good to see him get this opportunity. But I will say, first match in against Sammy Guevara, you're kind of like booked in the Bobby Fish role that you're going to be this good hand veteran working a good match, and maybe this is how they view him in terms of being able to give Sammy a good match and teach Sammy or whatnot. But I'm very skeptical in terms of the ceiling for a Jay Lethal based on where they're booking him one weekend.
Or do you have Jay Lethal beat Sammy?
Hey, listen, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean,
it's like a star is kind of born right off the bat by doing that.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And they do not like switching that title. Tony Khan was very adamant about the fact that we want long title reigns, particularly with the TNT Championship, because this is a title that the younger up and coming guys or the best wrestler right now on the roster is going to have. But if they switch it, I would have no problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
brutal match.
Yeah, and the TNT Championships has already switched hands. What, like
a few times,
twice this year? Yeah, twice this year, twice last year. I think it'd be a good way to kind of create a new star. And it doesn't really hurt Sammy. It's not like Sammy. I don't know. I think it'd be a cool thing to do. Not that Sammy gets out of the picture. You have that be the start of a feud between Jay and Sammy. Maybe move Sammy away from the inner circle. I feel like the inner circle's a little cold. And I think it could be open up a lot of possibilities if Jay Lethal won.
Yep. Sammy's definitely right for a singles run. I think that he would do just fine on that. And you're right. I think it would be kind of cool to see Jay Lethal get a title in his first official match with the company. That'd be, kind of nice. And, I do wonder, though, like what percentage of the audience was really familiar with him. Obviously he was over in the arena, but it's the same thing like when they bring in people to WWE who haven't been on WWE television yet. Like, how familiar are they? Even though we who kind of live, eat, and breathe pro wrestling know their names and have for years, we're not the average fan. So how much of the AEW audience actually knows them? But even the ones that don't, they're going to get to know him and they're going to like him because this guy has a work rate that is second to none.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure a decent amount don't know, but having him win the title on his first match, saying, "Hey, Jay Lethal, world-renowned wrestler comes in, wins," they take notice right away.
Yeah.
So,
and they were lethal chants, and I do think that AEW has kind of found success in bringing in people from different eras of ROH, which maybe that speaks to how familiar, because AEW is akin, it's always going to be linked to ROH, because All In was an ROH show with ROH guys who then went and signed with AEW, started AEW. And, whether it's Adam Cole, there's rumors already about Kevin Owens, the Young Bucks, Cody, and Jay Lethal slots in there as one of those premier ROH stars from a certain generation.
Yeah, real quick, we were talking about the ROH final battle not selling well. Tina Miller saying it would be like going to see ROH's death. I wouldn't want to go. Too depressing. I mean, that's a good point. It's probably not a fun show when you think about it. It's like the last show of the ROH as we've known it for years and years and years.
I don't think it helps that it's called Final Battle. It's like
yeah, I know. I know.
Prominent sign, bro.
It's like Final Nail.
Yeah.
I mean, ROH. I mean, it sucks because you saw them getting so much momentum 2 years ago. They did the MSG show with New Japan that sold out quickly. I mean, I know some people think it's because it sold out so quickly because people were expecting the Bucks and Omega, but whatever the case was, it was a co-promoted show. They were part of it. First ever show at Madison Square Garden in the modern era. That wasn't WWE pro wrestling show, obviously. And it was just like if Sinclair had put in the money and gave a crap, maybe ROH could be closer to where AEW is now. And who knows if there would have been AEW if they did that.
Yeah.
But the fact that they didn't.
Yeah.
Well, look, having been a former Sinclair employee, I'm just going to giggle at the fact that you said, had they put in the money, they ain't going to do that shit. Come on, son. I'm looking at the tickets that are available. So it looks like they did not put the top level on sale at all. It looks like they have blocked off the side of the ring where the cameras will be. So they'll be shooting across to the section that is open for seating, and the floor seats appear to be sold out, man, but everything beyond that is still wide the hell open, right? So you see all of that blue that's available right there.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Man.
Yikes.
Follow WrestleTix for more in terms of the ticket movement on that, but hopefully they're able to make a final push on it, because I really do love ROH. And it's interesting, Raj, that you bring up like, there might not even be an AEW. I think there's plenty of circumstances that maybe ROH could have taken advantage of being what AEW is, especially when it comes to All In, because if you remember, they were very magnanimous in how much they helped Cody and the Young Bucks put that show on without asking for anything in return. And I think and again, as a human, that's great, that's wonderful, but if they would have been a little more cynical, like, we are not helping you do anything unless you sign something, maybe we're talking about ROH versus WWE, but there's a lot of missteps along the way.
Yeah, if Sinclair put in the money and they're like, okay, we'll pay whatever it takes to get Omega, Cody, the Young Bucks under contract, does AEW happen if they did that? No.
And remember, I mean, ROH's biggest show was built on the backs of Kenny. People assumed that he was going to be at the MSG show. Assumed the same thing for the Bucks, Cody. None of those guys were actually there. People assumed that they were. That's why the Garden sold out. If it was known that they weren't going to be there, I don't think that the Garden would have come close to selling out. So ROH, man.
Very interesting. Well, let's get into our last two matches. We have the Inner Circle versus American Top Team. We get so this is kind of similar to the match that they had earlier in terms of a lot of plunder, tables, whatnot. We get some showcase spots from Junior Dos Santos, who hits a suplex, an impressive backflip on Chris Jericho. The story is the cat and mouse between Dan Lambert and Chris Jericho. I felt like what the crowd was into more than anything was seeing Dan Lambert get his comeuppance. Lambert would come in when he felt Chris Jericho was prone and then run away from him when Chris Jericho would come to. There was a pretty sizable botch toward the end where Jericho's going for the lion salt, and JDS, Junior Dos Santos, is supposed to interrupt it, but I think he just missed his spot, which caused Jericho to scream, Junior! to kind of get him to wake up and do his spot. And so that happened, and it was pretty close to the finish. Finish came when Jericho hit the frog splash in tribute to Eddie Guerrero on Dan Lambert, won the match. I think it was the right finish. It was the right team won. I would say this, we kind of hinted it toward it earlier. This was on the weaker side in terms of all the matches on this show, Raj.
Yeah, I did think the ending made up for it. Doing the Eddie spot, looking up. I got a little emotional when he was doing that. It's hard to believe it's been 16 years. And people remember Eddie, even in this day and age where people move on so quickly from things, that he still remembered so fondly and so vividly. I got emotional at the end of that. But I thought, outside of that, I thought this match kind of sucked. It was, in a lot of ways, it was one of the worst AEW pay-per-view matches they've had. The explosion death thing sucked because of the finish, the bomb not going off. But outside of that, I thought this was the worst.
Boy, I got some notes on this one. I got some notes, and they are not positive, gentlemen. They are not positive. Junior Dos Santos, I actually started with a good note for him. I was standing moonsault press. Okay, impressive. And that's where the good stuff ends. All right, so you just mentioned about Jericho having to, be like, hey, get your ass together, man. Get, the spot here. But like, he was just wandering haphazardly outside the ring throughout the match. Like, there was one specific instance where I forget who it was that was being pinned, and he's just on the outside, kind of like, la da 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 da. No, man, you go in there and you break that cover up, man. Like, come on, dude. I know that this is kind of new to you, but this is 101. Lambert was out there with him too. Lambert's been watching wrestling.
But he doesn't even watch pro wrestling. Why do you put so many? You got two people you're putting in this match that have never wrestled, and you're putting them in this spot where you can teach them what to do when they're in the ring, but they don't really know what to do when they're not involved. I think that's their mistake. Junior Dos Santos admittedly is not a pro wrestling fan.
I thought that he had interest in maybe trying it, like exploring it as a career opportunity. Now, I don't know. After tonight, I'm not sure that that's the best move for him, but whatever. Also, different note, Aubrey Edwards, the referee shouldn't be holding the ladder for a guy when he's going to do a swanton. Like, come on. What was that? Like, all right, safety first, but Jesus, you have so many other teammates there. Like, come on. How hard would it be to have somebody else hold the ladder? That was a nice swanton, Sammy. And then the one thing, though, that did make me laugh really hard was the fact that they had to explain the history lessons behind all the weapons were created in Minnesota. Friggin' Tony Schiavone talking about the bunt cake pan being made there in the 1940s. Like, who saw that coming, right?
Who gives a flying shit?
Who saw that? I mean, I was like, did that seriously just come out of his mouth? I laughed my ass off. I haven't been able to fact check them. So chat room, if you could check where the bunt cake was invented, please do that now. But damn, I mean, the match itself, but whatever.
I will say about the commentary. The commentary I thought was very amusing, but I do think it took away from this match because they were playing it like this was a comedy match, which the go-home angle for this match I thought was very good. It was a heat segment with the heels beating the crap out of the baby faces. They were not playing that for comedy, even though there have been some funny parts leading up to this. But I do think that the commentators kind of undermined it by really it seemed like they were taking this match off, to be honest.
One thing that really bugged me on Dynamite, when they did the Dan Lambert, Chris Jericho thing, was Dan Lambert, he's older, out of shape, or no, not out of shape, but he's not a very athletic looking dude, putting Jericho through a table. Now, in wrestling, you're being taught that you got to do a move with such force that it puts them through the table. And he did this powerbomb in slow motion and he went through the table. It would have been way better if the table didn't break, because it shows that you have to actually have force to put someone through a table, or basically just pushing someone lightly puts them through a table is what Dan Lambert did. So I don't know. That really bugged me. Anyway, but I thought Dan Lambert, I like some of his stuff here and there. I think he's very good at what he does. Lately, he's turned too much into pro wrestling heel. He's like Jimmy Hart out there now, as opposed to an MMA guy who doesn't like what he sees.
Right.
And I don't know. This match, if they had cut this match out completely, it would have been better because the pay-per-view would have moved more smoothly. I think. I thought this match sucked.
Yeah, yeah, not the best match. You can argue the worst match of the show, really.
Oh, I thought by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm checked out on the match and even this conversation. The bunt cake was invented in 1950, but it was in fact invented in Minnesota.
So Tony Schiavone half lied.
So, yeah, well, now there is a little bit of controversy, right? The Washington Post says the 1946, somewhere in that ballpark, but the first pan itself wasn't pressed until 1950. So I don't know why it took 4 years to invent or perfect something so simple, but I'm going with 1950 just to stick it to Schiavone.
Okay, so I don't mean to be that guy, but what's a bunt cake? That's the pan?
It is. Well,
Yes.
well, the bunt cake is not the pan. There is a bunt cake pan, and that is it's like a circular pan. I believe that it's got like some like ridges on the outside, and then like you put the cake in, you bake it, and then you flip it, and it comes out, and it's kind of a cool thing. That's a bunt cake. It's quite tasty. The old fat Chuck used to enjoy the hell out of some bunt cakes.
I think I know what a bunt cake is now. I think about it.
Let me pull up.
It's like a pineapple cake, right? Where it's got the.
It's a form of a bunt cake. It kind of looks like that, but yeah, you got the right idea.
Okay, gotcha.
So check out Minnesota. So they're responsible for Prince, the Mall of America, and the bunt cake. Who would have thought?
Hot damn! Here you go. There's your bunt cake.
Oh yeah.
There,
Okay.
yeah.
That's what.
That's delicious. Well, we're almost done with this.
We
So
learn something new every day.
Yeah, that looks delicious. Let's get to the main event, everybody. Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page. In the state that gave us the bunt cake, we get these two gentlemen giving us a very sweet match. That here, well, the first thing I noticed about this was Kenny Omega trolling Hangman Adam Page with his gear. Did you guys notice this? Kenny Omega pretty much wearing identical gear to Hangman Adam Page, not to what he was wearing on this night, but the way his gear was stylized was very similar to Hangman Adam Page. This was what stood out to me about this match was everybody was behind Hangman Adam Page. Everybody was against Omega. I've been a little burnt out with these split reactions. Let's go this guy. Let's go that. It's almost Pavlovian at this point. We saw it all across the show, but not with this. They were all for Hangman Adam Page winning this match. Don Callis would get involved. We get an F Don Callis chant. There was a ref bump in this match, rare ref bump on Paul Turner, which brought out Aubrey Edwards. And this is where it got pretty interesting in that the Young Bucks came down. And on Rampage, there was a segment between Heyman, Adam Page, and the Young Bucks where he said, if you get involved in this match, I will ruin you. So they brought that up. Young Bucks licking their wounds coming down, but they don't do a damn thing. Hangman Adam Page hits two buckshot lariats on Kenny Omega, one from behind, one in front. Matt Jackson nods in approval, and Hangman Adam Page is your new babyface AEW World Champion for now. He celebrated with the Dark Order. We can get into some of the other spots here. There were a lot of them. Adam Page did hit a one-winged angel at one point on Kenny Omega that Omega kicked out of, but I thought this was an incredible match, an incredible ending to what I thought was a good show, and a show that was, I believe, it was elevated by the fact that it had such a strong main event, which is what you want in a pay-per-view. And what did you guys think of this match? We'll start with you, Chuck.
Chat room, rate it out of 5 stars. I'd be curious to get your thoughts. I'm going to give this one 4.75 out of 5. I mean, I really enjoyed this thing start to finish. And I want to take the 10,000 foot view of this. I don't want to dissect the match. I want to take the 10,000 foot view. We knew that it was going to be a good match going in. Absolutely met expectations, perhaps then some a little bit. I am intrigued as hell as to where they are going with Hangman Page. Is he turning heel or are the Bucks going face? Because it's got to be one out of the two, right? That nod was everything at the end. And that tied the match together so well. It had a little bit of intrigue there to go with winning the championship. Is Omega being cast off now? Like, what's going to happen? I don't know, but I'm heavily invested in this storyline. Like, I loved everything about it. This was such a good finish. I don't know where they're going with this. I think because you have Danielson waiting in the wings and he's a babyface, you got to make Paige the heel here. But I don't know. Are the Bucks going face? Like, I don't know. You guys tell me.
Is it too soon for the Bucks to turn face? I feel like they just turned heel like not that long ago. Yeah. But that being said, it is intriguing. Like, there's so many different ways they can go. I like the storyline. This is one of those cases where a storyline has really made a guy into a superstar with Hangman Page, because Hangman Page is not the strongest promo still. And so far with AEW, all the main event guys outside of Hangman are all strong promos. They can really hold their own on the mic. And it just shows like this storyline and the way they built it and the way they got the fans behind Hangman. It's been fantastic. And the payoff, they paid it off like they should. They did the predictable thing, which a lot of times that's the best thing. It's better to not feel like you have to go a different route because it's predictable, because sometimes the predictable thing is the best thing for a story. And I thought this was great. Yeah, I'd go 4.5. It's rare that you see a long-term storyline paying off in this day and age in wrestling, and they did it tonight. So yeah. I thought it was fantastic. I got a question for you guys. There was a spot in the match where the referee got knocked out, and Paige had the match won, and then another referee ran down and started to count 1, 2, and then kick out right before 3. Rock and Triple H used to do that spot a lot. Yeah. But has that spot ever had the referee actually making the 3 count, where a referee runs down because the other referee's out and runs in and makes an actual 3 count? I don't think it's ever happened. I have a really good memory with this stuff. I don't think it's ever happened. If people in the chat, let me know.
If it did.
What's that?
Talk about burying a guy if it did happen. Like, man, you couldn't. They gave you a couple extra seconds and you couldn't kick out. But that's a good question.
Well, they did that with Booker T at WrestleMania.
Well, yeah, that was a whole different scenario where that was Triple H flexing his muscles. I still haven't gotten over that one.
Oh, that one just still drives me nuts. Egregious. But I can't remember any time where that's happened, where the referee runs in when another referee's out and actually counts to 3 as soon as they get in.
No,
it might be like maybe a guest referee. I could see that a guest referee came in and counted really fast, but
like Mike Tyson.
Yeah, there you go. But that particular spot that you're talking about, that's a good point. I might have to go and do some research. That might be another developing story.
Yeah, there you go. Real quick, Chuck, to your question, how people rate this match. A lot of high marks. Garris saying 4.25, Cleve saying 4.9. 4.5, 4.6. This is the low one. King Mike saying...
King Mike. That's a heelish rating, man.
5. 4.3. So, yeah, some... And then Muhammad saying 4.5. So...
Yeah, I graded this match on a scale of fictional cowboys, and I gave it a Rufus Buck from Harder They Fall, which is a phenomenal heel. Idris Elba, Rufus Buck does a great job. That's about a 9 out of 10. But this match is almost perfect for me. I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, it was good. And did you guys see how gassed we were talking about the run-in for the ref? Did you see how gassed Aubrey was when she got to the ring? I mean, she was like full on Usain Bolt coming down the ramp, like chugging, getting there. So yeah, she was gassed. So kind of made up for holding the ladder in the previous match, but still, whatever.
Yeah,
just a good ending to the pay-per-view. My God, was that a good ending?
I need to rewatch it with the crowd noise. So.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It might take down a little bit for you, but I love the fact that it's kind of a classic storytelling in terms of a pay-per-view, how it's constructed. I know a lot of people try to steal the show at a pay-per-view, and that's cool when that happens, but this was more classic to where it slowly built to its biggest match, and its biggest match was its best match. It goes off the air, and I think people were really happy, and that's going to really change how you perceive the pay-per-view as a whole.
Yeah, it's interesting because, people would criticize WWE for years for not starting with the least anticipated match and then build with the bigger match. And I feel like AEW is starting to do more the WWE model, where you start off with a hot match, kind of cool down a little bit. Because that inner circle match, that's what WWE would do, is you put in the least consequential match before the main event, not another one of your main matches. So, yeah. Anyway, I thought it was I thought this was a well-paced show. I could have done without the inner circle match completely, but oh god, I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the inner circle and the things that sucked. Baron von Raschke, he was there. Love Baron von Raschke. We were talking about the Powers Pain earlier in the watch along that night. He was the manager of them for a few minutes. But an 85-year-old man, or whatever, however old he is, putting the claw on, how old is Ethan Page? Probably like 24, 25?
Late 20s, I think. And
him selling it. I hate it, any company when they do that. When a really young guy has to sell a move. I know it gets a nice pop, but it just makes it then you're just telling the fans that, oh yeah, this is all just a show. Everything's bullshit, and we're going to have fun. He should not be selling that.
Yeah, at least they touted his credentials before they did that. Remember, they showed him in the crowd. They listed him as one of the greatest of all time. So at least they built him up to not just be some random old guy in the crowd.
You're not going to have someone from the 1960 Bulls dunking on LeBron James just to give a feel good moment.
We're not going to get Bill Cartwright posting up LeBron James. I don't know.
Did we just have a Bill Cartwright reference? Oh my God! Wow, that's a name I haven't heard in a minute.
But yeah, you know, you're not going to have Larry Holmes come in and punch out, gosh, Tyson Fury. I don't know.
Yeah, that is one of those moments, and that's what makes wrestling unique, is that there are moments where you really have to suspend your disbelief, and especially a lot of what AEW does. You know, you could say that about WWE, but I just saw a match with a bunch of Ghostbusters in it, and in order for me to enjoy the match, I had to suspend the belief that, okay, these are grown men wearing costumes, but I was able to get into it by doing that. But a spot like this, I think, is a little more egregious in terms of if you're trying to book these, again, men of the year, tough shooters, you know, that's the character, and they're doing this kind of wacky spot. That might turn some people off. I could definitely see that.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the Ghostbuster stuff too. I'm fine with it if it's not with main eventers.
Sure.
But when it's your top guys, I just feel like, and that's supposed to be like a real feud. I didn't like it. It's fun, and again, do it for the lower level card guys.
It's still better than that zombie match that they had in WWE a while back.
Oh God.
Just saying.
Yeah,
if you listen to the podcast I did on that, I went off quite a bit on that. But at least that one wasn't a main event.
Yeah, that was.
I guess they did do a zombies at ringside for one of the takeover, the Halloween Havoc last year, but I didn't like that either.
Yeah, no. Less zombies in wrestling.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of zombies in wrestling. Stellar's Justin Lopez, a good friend of ours, saying, little nitpick, but I hate that everyone has the same pyro in AEW. Every character should have specific elements to match their appearance. To that, I'll say they did have the video entrances for Hangman Page tonight with him riding the horse downtown Minneapolis and the Darby Allen video. So they do some stuff.
That is something that they're taking from Nitro era WCW, because that's how that was. Outside of like that one time Kevin Nash got all that like spectacular display that has become a viral kind of video. But in WCW, that was one of my problems with WCW, is that everybody seemed to get the same pyro. And WWE, you know, Shawn Michaels had that iconic pyro that went back and forth. Kane had his pyro out of the corners, and Jericho had the big explosion. Everybody seemed to have specific pyro.
Very unique. Like Sid had the Sid.
Yes, his name.
His name come up, yeah.
Warrior had his mask as a pyro. Like I think Randy Orton always had great pyro where it would just kind of shower down. So they could get more creative with the pyro. That's a great nitpick. I don't think that's a nitpick. I think that's a legit point.
I wonder if it's a budget thing though, right? Because you know that the more you customize it, the more the cost of that is going to go up. And I'm not sure that they're ready to invest more yet in production. So I don't know. That's just kind of my thought there, but I do think that is an excellent point. You know,
I got a question for you guys too regarding the Hangman video. Don't you think he should have done something at the end of the video, like thrown a brick at the arena or something explosive,
come out on a horse, like it's like remember that WrestleMania entrance with John Cena where he's driving around? It was Detroit, I think it was WrestleMania 23 when he faced Shawn Michaels. So they're doing the backstage thing when he's driving the car, and then he drives a car out to the arena. It would have been a bit of a letdown if we're seeing this awesome car and he just walks out. And I thought that was my problem with it. I thought he was going to be on there with another horse and do a little bit more with that.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Something.
That's nitpick though, man. That's a little thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, we're getting to the nitpick areas of this pay-per-view. Maybe we need to wrap up the podcast. But all in all, I think we enjoyed the pay-per-view. That's good.
Another awesome pay-per-view.
Listen, I like the fact that AEW has now established this kind of area where pretty much all the pay-per-views are going to be good. They're going to be worth the price of admission. So maybe grading it based on the other great pay-per-views isn't fair to AEW, but they've established a high bar. Shout out to NYC Demon Diva.
She was on the pay-per-view tonight.
They're live. I hear that she got on camera. So that's
awesome. She was on camera.
Singing Judas.
Nice.
She was on the show. I popped. I was like, Issa! Looks super happy to be there. It looked like you guys were having a great time. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait till they come out to California. I've been hearing some rumors, but whenever AEW is ready to come out to our neck of the woods, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's AEW. So any final thoughts before we wrap up this podcast? Let's start with you, Chuck, and then we'll wrap up with our esteemed Raj.
Final thoughts, again, exceeded my expectation, and damn, am I curious to see what happens on Wednesday. I mean, I absolutely love it when there's a good, clean ending to a pay-per-view that still has intrigue to make you want to tune into the next show. That is something that is ultra rare this day and age, and AEW absolutely freaking nailed it with this one. So, yeah, fantastic job, Tony Khan and company. Fantastic.
Raj?
Awesome show, and right after this is done, you can catch the AEW Media Scrum live on our YouTube channel. Nick is recording it. Great show, fantastic job. I think AEW, their ratings have been falling. I think the thing they need to do, they're probably going to get a bump coming off this pay-per-view. Start putting a couple big matches here and there. Bryan Danielson just wrestling is not a draw, or CM Punk just wrestling. It might be a bigger draw than someone else, but you need to start making the shows a little more loaded, at least, something, because I want to see them ride this wave of momentum and not drop the momentum, because I feel like the momentum's kind of fading away. And I think coming off this pay-per-view, build on it and get to the next level.
Absolutely. And I'm very interested to see what they're doing with their main event storyline, because I think there's a question as to where they're going. Is Hangman a page a heel? Is he going to be a babyface? But I think that's good that this top storyline has now captivated people. And before we got off the air, I want to echo King Mike's sentiments of where AEW should come to California. Yes, come to Compton. Please come to Compton, the unique event center. It will be very good for AEW. Not too far from me. Come to Compton.
How big is it? How big is it?
It's not that big. It's a banquet hall, but it'll probably be somewhere like I don't think SoFi. SoFi is huge, so that would be more of a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But the Forum,
WrestleMania is.
That's
WrestleMania in 2 years.
Yeah. But it'll be fun. So AEW will be all over the country. For Chuck Carroll at Chuck Carroll WLC, for Raj Giri at Raj Giri _303. I am Alfred Konuwa at This Is Nasty. We will see you all next week, Monday, for Raw. You guys are going to be covering that. So good night, everybody. Thank you for joining the Wrestling Inc. podcast.